see everybody here to take part and discuss a very, very important issue here in the city, the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Program, or LERTA. And we're here this evening to officially address one part of the legislation which mandates that we have a public meeting to discuss the boundaries. But when we have this give and take and we talk, it's very hopeful that we will all talk about the value of the LERTA program, why it's important for the city of Harrisburg, why it's important for economic and community development, to stabilize, to stimulate, to grow our neighborhoods as well as our business community. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Hudson, who's the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. He'll continue our discussion.
And thank you, Jackie. And that's just what it is, a discussion. So we certainly want to hear input from the community. As Jackie mentioned, I'm with the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. Our mission, our initiative, or job, whatever you want to call it, is to build affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I just recently served as president of our national group for all the HFAs, housing finance agencies across the country. So, again, let me thank all of you for being here tonight. I'm going to talk about our previous discussions on the LERTA and what that means from a community standpoint. First of all, there's no silver bullet for community revitalization. It has to be all the groups working together. We need the developers, we need the municipalities, which would mean, in this case, the county, the school district, and the city coming together to agree on some terms of whatever revitalization initiative we attempt to do. LERTA is just that. It's a tax abatement program. It is a local economic revitalization assistance. In the layman's term, it's a tax abatement program. And what I am recommending and suggesting that the city do is have a 10-year LERTA, full 10-year LERTA that will take, and then have that advertised. So let's say how this will work. In the city, we know that there are 387 vacant properties which are not producing any type of tax revenue for the city. The chart, the map shows where some of those vacant parcels are. The city could then issue an RFP, if you will, to direct developers to those areas for revitalization. So the home buyer would not have to pay taxes for a full 10 years. We're also recommending, or I would be recommending, that there be a commercial separate LERTA for just what's commercial development. These empty shells, lots, if you will, are not paying tax revenue, and in the long run, it's decreasing the value of the neighborhood, because I guarantee you, when nothing is done, the value will continue to go down. And the way we've worked with municipalities across the state, and for that matter across the country, is to target, first of all, those areas that are distressed, that need the help, provide an incentive for private capital, meaning the developers, to come into a community and basically build a new home or rehab an existing shell that is there. Now, I know some of the individuals in communities live on blocks where there are vacant shells or lots, and that's exactly what this is about, to provide an incentive for a developer to come in and do that. Over the past years, my agency has attempted to do that in Harrisburg and in cities across the Commonwealth. Uptown Harrisburg, we were involved in Capitol Heights on the Hill. It was Mount Pleasant Homes section also. And we're still going to be doing that, but this will be a partnership again for all those taxing bodies to agree to participate in the abatement program that goes forward. And I know the residents had questions about, well, what's in it for me? And quite truthfully, the city does have some resources depending on qualifications. For instance, CDBG money that could be brought to the table to help those who live in those communities upgrade their properties also. If nothing is done, and we've seen this happen in other areas, the neighborhood would continue to deteriorate. As I mentioned before, this is not a silver bullet. It has to be used in conjunction with other resources. I've also heard questions revolved around, well, didn't the city try this before? Yes, they did. In the Broad Street Market area, the Fox Ridge Townhomes. And why didn't that succeed? Quite truthfully, after hindsight, looking at that whole process, It wasn't sustained, it wasn't dedicated to continue to advertise that there was in fact a LERTA in place. The dedication of the resources to fight crime was not there, and the homeowners weren't educated about what happens in year 11 when that LERTA goes away. Where do my taxes go to? Quite truthfully, they go back to the current assessment, and the homeowner has to pay taxes at that rate. So a lot of homeowners weren't educated. And that has to be part and parcel of the process going forward. So it has to have an education component about what is the LERTA and how it would affect the homeowners going forward. For instance, attracting new homeowners to come into the city. Now we know that people come and go. They move in and out of the city. So for those who live in a somewhat stable neighborhood, but you have one shell, one vacant property, or one vacant lot on your block, for instance. If nothing is done, I guarantee your property will continue to decrease. But let's say, for instance, later on you do decide to move, you would want to get the maximum sale price for your home. And by having the ability to offer that tax abatement, which would provide the incentive for someone to buy a home in that neighborhood, would further stabilize those neighborhoods, which some of you may think are pretty stable. But we have a lot where there's only one shell, one vacant lot, that this would help revitalize those entire neighborhoods. So that's why it would be certainly beneficial to the entire city. So we are recommending we are seeking a full LERTA that will encompass the entire city boundaries. Priorities, of course, would be in those areas where there are concentrations of the vacant lots and the shell properties, for instance. I would envision that the city would issue an RFP for those developers to incentivize them to come into those areas and present proposals. How would you revitalize certain blocks in Uptown Harrisburg, on the Hill, Midtown Harrisburg, whatever the case may be, to get rid of these properties so that they can then become income-producing properties. Again, it's not a silver bullet. It should be used in conjunction with the other two, such as the land bank and an aggressive policy of going after economic revitalization or the bad landlords that may be in certain areas of the city. And I know that the mayor is certainly committed, and I want to thank the mayor and his staff, Jackie Parker, Brian Davis, and the city staff for bringing us all together to talk about what is a LERTA and hear your comments. So I certainly want to thank all of you for coming tonight. That's kind of an overview of how it's worked, the successes we've seen in different communities in Philadelphia, parts of the Commonwealth, certainly in the Baltimore area. Other states have done this. I'm just coming off a housing conference in Boston with some of my other counterparts. And many of the communities are doing exactly what we're talking about right now. But it is a tool, and so there is no silver bullet, but you have to come together and you have to agree that we want to revitalize the city of Harrisburg. And that's pretty much how it should work going forward. So I don't want to be just the only one talking, so I'm going to open up the program so we can hear from some of you, so we can hear your concerns and questions about how it would work, how it could work, things like that.
I'm going to add a little bit to what Brian has said. And I would encourage all of you to take a look at the map, because that really tells a very good story. You know, it's, for most of you, it's far away. But outlined there are, as Brian mentioned, and outlined on there are all the non-tax producing properties, either owned by the redevelopment authority, owned by, or are in repository, so not owing any taxes there, they're just idle, condemned properties. And if you take a look, that there are areas that could be redeveloped and assembled for redevelopment, especially in neighborhoods for housing. And I think that tells you the story of why we would like a citywide tax abatement program, because you can't say that any one area is in any more need than another. There are areas that show those pockets, so we couldn't separate them and say that one is more needy than another, or deserves redevelopment more than another site, and we want that opportunity for everybody in the city. And what we're hearing from neighborhoods is, you know, they like their neighborhood, they like to live there, they want a revitalized area, and yet they're living near vacant properties or blighted properties. That's a big complaint, and they're asking us, how can the city help remediate that? And we believe that, as Brian said, it's one tool to help incentivize. We have developers here this evening and builders who are anxious to take a look at some of those areas, and this is kind of a tool that would encourage that. I also want to add that in the back of the room, we did bring some handouts that show that there are programs now through CDBG and Home that the city has that will help the homeowners that are already in those neighborhoods. So when they see that something's happening and there's something stimulating in their neighborhood, we're getting rid of a blighted property, they're building some homes, what can they have, what's available for them to fix up their homes? And we have those programs that are listed in the back for homeowners to fix up, to bring their house up to code, facade restorations. There's all kinds of things that the money can be used for eligible homeowners. So there are those possibilities, and we believe that once the neighborhoods become, they become rehabilitated, and they see that excitement and the reinvestment that's going on there, that they would like to do that also with their homes, because they know their homes are going to be more valuable if they invest because somebody else is investing in them. So, and we would like to open it up for public comment, and there have been some people here in the audience who requested to speak, and I'm going to invite them to come up now, and then at the end, anybody who's here would like to talk to us a little bit more about their thoughts on it, we're welcome you to do that as well. So we'll start with Brian Davis.
Is there a sign sheet?
No.
Good evening. My name is Brian Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Harrisburg Housing Authority. A great many of you might recognize me from being out and about, also with Capital Area Coalition on Homelessness. I also live at 312 Seneca Street, and I thought that I'd give you, share just my thoughts from a real estate development standpoint, from your redevelopment authority's history and what we've learned over the years. What we've actually seen happening today, I'm really quite excited about. Primarily, well, for many reasons, but primarily because I see a focus of energy in the city. I see our leadership really focused on moving us forward. We're coming out of receivership, we're into recovery. And so all these various resources that I see as critical for successful redevelopment and successful growth and stabilizations in our communities, I'm really excited to see this happening. I mean, that includes the comprehensive plan process too. So you have a lot of irons in the fire that each of them are meaningful in their own right, but when you put them all together, it really does excite me. More to the point, a local economic revitalization tax assistance program, we've had them in the past, as Brian mentioned. I want to mention the 5-year versus 10-year. Some of you might remember we did at one time have a 5-year tax abatement program. One of the things that we learned from that experience was, especially with homeowners, the 5-year was too short of a period of time for their income to grow to meet the demand of the real estate taxes after the end of the 5 years. And that's part of the reason that gave birth to its successor of the 10-year phased-in tax abatement program that the city had for a long time. And that worked really well for homeowners. I'm specifically talking about people who buy new homes and they qualify for the full 10-year tax abatement. So from a financial ability of families to support that or ease their way in, that was much better than a 5-year. When it comes to real estate development, a lot of you know this, but what LERTA does, I just want to remind us that it really does level the playing field between the city itself and the surrounding municipalities. Because what it does, it helps remove real or even perceived barriers to promoting the real estate development in the city. You know, private development and investment, it goes where the highest rate of return is on their investment dollars. So the city really does and has over the years, since as long as I've been around, which goes back to 1995, it's always competed with the suburbs and the farmland as far as doing farmland construction for residential development. If we have LERTA, I doubt that we will see the opposite. I really didn't start this out right, but the LERTA really does accelerate your renovations. It accelerates all the construction activities. It will accelerate new construction, gut rehab, and major business relocation into the city, which that, by the way, also brings jobs. So these are the upside of having a LERTA. So as far as the school district is concerned, even though the tax revenues are deferred, the return to the school district is tangible and it is measurable. For example, at Capitol Heights, you had 140 new homes constructed with the tax abatement, and the return on that is an average home sale price of $123,500, and at 140 homes at that value, it generated $482,660 per year for the Harrisburg School District. So that gets accelerated whenever we have these LERTAs. Another example is Marketplace, New Homes in Marketplace. There were 17 of those. They're now delivering, or will shortly, because some of them are still in their abatement time frame. But once they're out of abatement, that's an additional $52,202. So it's over $500,000 of increased tax revenue that you might have seen through natural growth down the road. But what the LERTA does is accelerate it, brought it forward for all of us. The secondary benefits, just let me touch on a few. Brian already said it increases value of nearby properties, it becomes comparable for new real estate appraisals and new real estate assessments, it raises the value of nearby properties. It also reduces blight by making otherwise unattractive investments financially feasible, or even just making it more reasonable in consideration from responsible citizens, developers, or investors. The importance of blight is that a vast majority of our neighborhoods are affected by blight, either blighting structures or abandoned structures or vacant property. We all are touched, it affects all of us, and it keeps our property values depressed, and it also keeps me depressed, because I don't like to see it. So it's a quality of life issue as well. So if, like Brian said, and all of us in this room probably say, there is no one size fits all, there is no magic bullet. So I'm hoping that we'll continue to add to our resources and add to these tools, including the Harrisburg Land Bank, which is another thing in the right direction, so that we have every resource at our disposal in order to move those properties back onto productive use, out of blight, and improving our neighborhoods. Now, HRA and the City of Harrisburg, and with the partner of the city, it does this work regularly. We acquire vacant blighted properties. The only thing that really holds us back is the cash to do it, the money to actually acquire more and to turn them over, put them back into productive use. You'll see on this map an outline of at least 387 vacant lots, just vacant lots, that the redevelopment authority currently holds title to. If we had a LERTA, and if it accelerated development, did an RFP and received a response back from developers, it has the potential to deliver 289 new single-family homes. If you did nothing else but single-family homes, that's nearly 300. So my example earlier of about 150 homes delivering $500,000, you can see that if you did double that, you'd get about $1 million per year. It would be the return on being able to move those, accelerate development on those lots. So, in conclusion, I just want to really encourage everyone to seriously consider and adopt some type of local LERTA that will accelerate real estate development in the city, help us to stabilize our neighborhoods, which increases safety, it attracts families with children, and it also will simultaneously accelerate the growth of the tax base to support the Harrisburg School District. Thank you.
I think Malcolm Jackson is here.
Thank you, Jackie and Brian. Thank you all for the opportunity to get up here and speak tonight. My name is Malcolm Jackson. I'm here representing AKM Partners, and we are a development general contractor and construction firm based here in the Harrisburg area. And I'm here to tell you that the LERTA would significantly impact our ability to move our investors to make significant investments to revitalize Harrisburg. Our group of investors already have a pretty good vested interest in Harrisburg, and so this effort would only improve their current investments. And furthermore, for our business specifically, as a minority contracting firm, as a minority developer, working to build partnerships and collaborations of other minority partners moving forward, this presents the perfect chance to give minority firms a chance to perform and show that the work can be done here with local labor, local leaders. And with that, AKM is committed to using all the resources available. And So I spent a lot of time in the nonprofit industry. One of the programs that I got to sit on the panel with to see if we could bring it to fruition was the local Harrisburg Youth Build program. And so as a person involved in the preliminary stages of that program, I'm committed to trying to bring those young folks, the young cohorts of individuals who have graduated now to the workforce labor. And as we look at the economic viability that's made possible via potential LERTA process, our ability to add them to the workforce is a lot more feasible. That stretch is not so far. So the LERTA, in short, I hope you regard it and consider it greatly moving forward. Could be a great benefit to a lot of local small businesses like myself and ACAM and our partners. And we'd like to offer our assistance, our expertise in the process moving forward to help you better understand the true economics and the true social impact that this ordinance could have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gary Knight.
Thank you, Brian and Jackie. Good evening, all. My name is Gary Linker. I am the Executive Director of Triton County Housing Development Corporation. We are a HUD-certified charter, which is a community housing development organization that develops, promotes, and maintains affordable housing for the benefit of low and moderate income families, not only here in the city of Harrisburg, but surrounding communities in Dauphin, Cumberland, and Perry counties. In my private sector life of being a home builder, developer, and a realtor, I had the privilege of serving on Brian's board for over 16 years, so I'm very much in tune to the need for affordable housing in our area. And I had the distinct privilege to serve on housing commissions or transition teams of 3 different administrations, Governor Casey, Governor Ridge, and Governor Rendell. And one of the themes that came out of those housing studies, the biggest impediment to people buying a home today is the down payment and closing cost assistance. But very close behind that is the burden of property taxes. And I'm very excited about this opportunity that the city is considering. I think it would do a tremendous job to bring growth and development, provide young families with the opportunity, those of low and moderate income means, to purchase a home in the city. And as Brian indicated, the housing counseling is certainly a very big part of preparing the family for where year 11 goes in their life and maintaining that opportunity. So we're excited and appreciate the opportunity to say a few words this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Jim Jones.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Jones. I'm a member of elected official of Local 542 Organization of International Union of Operating Engineers, and also I'm a trustee, executive board member of the Central Pennsylvania Building Construction Trades. On our behalf of our council and our affiliated unions, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to present our views for consideration of LERTA and the Harrisburg School District in anticipation for consideration of a similar LERTA by the city of Harrisburg in the county of Dauphin. Central Pennsylvania Building Construction Trades and its Federation of Labor Organizations representing skilled tradespeople, apprentices in the building construction trades throughout the greater Harrisburg area. Our affiliate organizations are involved in every aspect of the building construction and renovations, modifications, demolitions, ranging from residential buildings to commercial projects, light, medium, and heavy-duty industrial projects. Projects, power plants to roads, bridges, highways, community infrastructure, and virtually any form of public, private, building activity that can be imagined. First and foremost, construction trades is supportive of creation of a comprehensive plan to revitalize and grow the city of Harrisburg. We have a helping hand in the city and its school district, and our members take an extraordinary pride in projects that we've completed together. But with that said, we like you and we want you to ensure that this plan is weighed between the needs of the community, private interests, and also the workforce. So to that end, I would like to take these few key points. One, have all stakeholders participate in formation of this plan who has not had the opportunity to have input. To date, we have not seen any language that creates participation of secrecy. Secondly, we want limits, if any, of all LERTA, with this encompass the entire city and for its specific portion. We would like to see working documents so that we can offer suggestions. Thirdly, will there be residency requirements for LERTA? We would like to urge any LERTA to have preferences so that local residents can get jobs. We want local people to get jobs from this and not just tax breaks. Number 4, considering the fact that LERTA is a tax abatement program awarded by a Pennsylvania government agency, will you abide by prevailing wage standards? Number 5, anything that's being done along those lines of LERTA must include minority and women set-asides as a requirement. We have offered, and that offer still stands, to help draft this language. At the end of the day, and to conclude, Central Pennsylvania Trades can be a very advantageous partner in this endeavor. We want to be, but we don't want to be. But what we don't want to see happen is a tax abatement program that benefits only a few. We want to see economic development as much as anyone else. Jobs mean employment to our members, and to us, nothing is more important. There is a way that it can be done to help everyone. There's a way that to do it can be actually help Harrisburg with its war on crime. How can you get criminals to stop breaking the law? Local jobs. Wouldn't it be nice to have jobs for high school graduates? Our members enjoy living wage, family-sustaining jobs, quality of life, pension, and benefits. We want to help solve Harrisburg's problem, and we want to do a seat at the table as this language is crafted. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll open up for other comments from the audience. Anyone else?
Thank you. You stated that having a citywide LERTA, there would be a possibility of raising the value of nearby properties of current homeowners. And I guess that would be the issue for current homeowners, because if you raise the property value, their taxes will also increase, correct?
Only through an assessment process, and I don't think any of the taxing bodies are planning on doing any type of reassessment.
Okay. 2 more questions. Would you be able, under the LERTA, to target specific areas? So, say for instance, you do a 100% 10-year LERTA for targeted areas, and a 100% 5-year LERTA for non-targeted areas. Has that been considered?
Let me go back. The group that met after the presentation to the school district consisted of city council, the county, city, myself. We did look at trying to do different types of phasing targeted administratively. That could get pretty complex. And that's one of the reasons why when I looked at it doing a 10-year with an RFP that was attached to those areas. So the city would issue an RFP for developers to go after those prime areas. And it doesn't mean that if someone comes in and there's a vacant shell or a lot in a particular area, that's not targeted, because that's still a plus for the city. You still have to proceed with that. But that RFP would be a larger scope. And I think hearing from even some of the developers tonight, they're ready to bring some of those resources to the table. You want to have impact projects. So impact projects means through an RFP process. That's one of the reasons why it's this way, but administrative level people talk about it.
Well, and tonight I have my resident hat, okay, homeowner hat. So, and I hear what you're saying, but as a resident, how do you know that when a developer comes in, that they're even going to be looking at targeted areas where there's the most blight? So how do you know that those things, that's going to occur?
Well,
So what if all the developers come in and they're just looking at the non-targeted areas such as downtown, midtown?
they got to respond to an RFP first. That's going to be part of the RFP. So the RFP done by the city is going to say, we want you to respond to this. That will be those areas. So that's how you're going to be able to come in and take a look at that. In addition to that, Mr. Jones mentioned the prevailing wage and having MDW as a member of the Diversity Coalition. I can tell you that when that RFP is drafted, as not in the LERTA language, that RFP will also include some very strong, and I'm not speaking for the mayor, but knowing how he feels about MDW inclusion, that will be part and parcel of that RFP to make sure that MDW enterprises have an opportunity to compete with the city business too.
One more question, I apologize.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Just in my own research, I just want to know, has a land value tax been considered?
A land value tax?
Yes.
No, I don't think that's been looked at. I think what we were, in terms of maximum impact, the LERTA plus the land bank are the two strongest tools. Given the current state of where the city is, and you heard Brian Davis talk about the significant change around Capitol Heights. We, PHFA, had significant investment in that area. The LERTA and the land bank are the two tools that will have maximum impact. That's the reason why we looked at that.
I guess it's when I'm researching, they're talking about vacant lots and surface lots that are just sitting there waiting for the value of the neighborhood to increase before they build. So I guess that was, their thought process that you would tax those vacant lots and make people or give them the incentive to build on them. But if you have properties that already have buildings on them, they would be taxed less.
Right. That's a slower process also. LERTA and the land banking process move much quicker because the land value tax, they'll pay the tax, but they'll still wait. If nothing's happening around them, that's not going to bring in any significant dollars because those land...
But if those taxes continue to increase as the surface lot remains vacant, then that would kind of give someone an incentive to build on it as opposed to seeing your taxes.
Well, there's maximum limits as to how you can increase it each year. That's not a significant pot of money, quite truthfully. As much as the LERTA or the land bank would bring in itself.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Other comments or questions from the audience?
Les Ford, 2033 Bellevue. I have watched what has happened with Capitol Heights and Marketplace and those developments uptown. And I have a couple of questions based on that. First of all, the idea of the optimal use of land over time. And secondly, the planned obsolescence. So, my first question has to do with the quality of construction and housing density. Now, it is true that Capitol Heights and Marketplace, I think, focused on single-family dwellings, but it's a high concentration. It's a relatively high concentration. And I believe to date, those homes are not fully occupied. Some are now rentals. There have been deals cut over the years. As a matter of fact, some are not even constructed. I believe in the vacant lots up that way now. If not specifically those, very close to those. So I guess my first question has to do with population density from a planning perspective and juxtaposing that to what I see going on 4 blocks from here. there is a high-density, multi-story building going up, and I believe that that would be a multi-family dwelling. A few blocks down toward 13th Street on that same street, there is one that has been put up. I happen to know the developer. I won't speak one way or another, but I know that developers tend to want to get the best bang for the buck. So they're going to focus on high density, high population, which I don't think necessarily will be to the benefit of the neighborhoods. So as you go forward with this planning, I'm going to suggest very strongly that you do two things. Number one, you insist that the construction quality is such that the buildings themselves, the residents themselves will last longer than 10 years. And I think that is a problem with some of the housing town now that has been developed. I will secondly suggest very strongly that you find a way to influence developers to disperse. They want to roll in the trucks, they want to roll in the construction crews and focus on an area and do it and be done and move on to the next one. And the most economic way for them, I believe, is for this high density. But I'm going to suggest to you as you go forward with this plan that you focus on a dispersed construction effort as they go forward.
Can I comment on that right now?
Yes.
I think you have a very good point. I think our new zoning code does address high density, and we do want to get away from that, and so that there are some density requirements. And also because many of the properties are owned by the redevelopment authority. The redevelopment authority in the city take a look at anybody who purchases, and they look at the plan, and they look at the ability of that developer, and they look at past projects. So there's nothing that says that we have to enter into an agreement, but when we do enter the agreement, we have timelines, we have scope of work, and we know what they're going to be doing on those properties. So we absolutely would want to get away from high density, and that's something we would look at.
And finally, I want to talk about curb cuts. And it was my thought several years ago that Harrisburg was the curb cut capital of the Mid-Atlantic area. Now you're going to ask me what do I mean by that. I mean that if you go 50 feet from here, you will see curb cuts at this intersection. If you go almost to any intersection, major intersection in Harrisburg, you will see curb cuts. That is recent history, so that's why I'm bringing it up. The level of minority participation in that effort was abysmal. The level of local participation in that effort was abysmal. They were federal dollars, obviously. If they weren't, the curb cuts never would have been done. As a matter of fact, some of the curb cuts were done twice. The ones at the high school were done twice. So they doubled down on that. But my question is, after the curb cuts have been put in, after the visiting labor force has done its job and gone away, after the visiting developer has done that and left, what is left for the community? What benefit are those curb cuts in the greater scheme of things? So I don't want this effort to be equated 20 years from now with what has happened in Harrisburg relative to curb cuts, that we had this burst of energy around development. But when the lights are turned off and the hall is empty, what benefit has accrued to the city of Harrisburg in the long run, and its residents and its school district in particular? So that is my curb cut story. I thank you for tolerating my questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. I appreciate your comments. Les. On Capitol Heights, there were a couple things that occurred there that we saw in hindsight in working with the developer on that project. One, I thought they initially had too high sale prices. They also got caught in the downturn. And that wasn't the only project. We had a project across the Commonwealth that got hit by the Great Recession. So we allowed them to rent until that market come back. In the middle of that process, the principal changed hands. So the original developer had to pull out for whatever reason, problems within their own company. And a new developer came in, but one of the biggest problems that we saw was the unforeseen recession coming, and that impacted about 10 different projects that we had going at the same time across the Commonwealth. So we allowed all of them to win. One of our requirements was to have new construction, and yeah, you remember this, 50 new, if you were doing new construction, you had to have 50 new units of home ownership. As the market was booming, there was no trouble in meeting that. Capitol Heights, as well as the 9 others that I mentioned, got caught in the crosshairs of the recession when the housing market tanked. So they ended up doing 25, 30, 35, and we were very flexible with them. Some of them are just now beginning to come back, and we're helping them with our own mortgage products to sell those homes. So that's one of the things that was occurring in Capitol Heights. I thought the original sales price was a little high at the time. We said bring that down. They probably move some units faster, but that's what occurred there. I just wanted to share that little bit of background on what happened there. Any other comments? Please come forward.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I have always, when we looked at LERTAs across the board in the city of Harrisburg over the last couple of years, city council has not necessarily approved them because it really hasn't benefited our city 100%. My question to you though, and it's something I think that needs to be built into the process that talks about when we do these LERTAs, that people need to stay in those homes longer than the 10 years in order for our community to benefit from it. You can't just buy a home, get tax-free for 10 years, and then walk away in the 10th year and not give something back to this community. And what we found when you look through the data, and I can go pull it up because we did the analysis on it, very few people stay in those homes after that 10 year. Everybody looks for an opportunity to come in and seize the moment, but we need to build a structure that says if you get this LERTA, you need to be here at least 5 years after. And even if there are developers that are coming in here, they need to be giving something back to this community in terms of making sure that we strategically have jobs for the people that live here. Because if we're talking about the American dream that we all aspire to acquire one day, and most of us sitting in this room have done it, you want to be able to afford people an opportunity to make a decent wage. A decent wage isn't $10 an hour. It needs to be the prevailing wage, as Mr. Jones says. But if you're doing a 22-hour job, then you need to be paid $22 an hour. If it's a $35 an hour job, you need to pay that. That means that if you're a masonry, you're going to get paid prevailing wage. If you're a steel worker, you're going to get paid prevailing wage. And we have to insist upon that in this community if, in fact, we're going to lift everyone up at the same time, and we're going to change what our communities look like. We just can't come in here and build, walk away with the incentives, and not give back to the people who have been here all their lives. I've been here all my life, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, but I want to make sure that the people of this community get their just due in terms of making sure that we see some benefit from it. So I'd like to see something like that built into the program that says, you get a LERTA, guess what? You got to stay here at least 5 years. You need to give something before you leave. Another thing that you find with LERTAs is that oftentimes people come in here and they purchase those homes and they end up renting them out. And they're still making money and they still get a tax break. There's something wrong with that picture. We need to close that loop in the process. That they can't be something that you come and make an investment in, get a tax break, rent it out, and all of a sudden they're still bankrolling. And they don't live here. They live in Forest Hills, they live, wherever they live at. And you have a right to make money, so I'm not against people coming in and making investments. But if you're going to invest in our community, give back to help this community grow and let the people see that you're really here genuinely for the people of this community and grow with us. Because it's about partnerships. When you develop partnerships, it changes the whole dynamics of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Good evening. My name is Tariq Castile, owner of TLC Construction and Renovation. I'm a local contractor in the area of Harrisburg. We work with Grassroots Harrisburg. Was a subcontractor for a few years, and through a teaming agreement, I became a developer. I've done a lot of community projects, Governor Square, housing, commercial projects, and I was just curious of how if all Section 3 play, what role will the Section 3 contract play in this development opportunity for this LERTA? Because I didn't hear nothing about the Section 3, because I am a Section 3 certified contractor, and I want to know is any diversity be addressed in any of this? Because most developers come into town, they say they're going to use minority contractors for this and that, and then at the end of the day, there's none of that, because they're never using black and brown, and they use Caucasian white women, and this community around here is majority black and brown. So the developers that, they come and get their spill, they say they're going to do this, do that, they come and put the houses up and leave. So at the end of the day, they leave nothing here except for a housing. They need one-stop shops, work-based trainings, all that. That's what's going to keep somebody from going to jail, from being on the corner. That's going to cut down on crime. If you're going to teach somebody a trade, of course, whether they work for the developer, they can work for anybody if you teach them a trade. So, and basically, you create the job, but you also cutting down on crime. Because if ain't nobody got no job, it's about survival out here. So they're going to do whatever is necessary to survive. So I just want to know what the Section 3 part is, what role does Section 3 play in this? Because I ain't hearing nothing about none of that. The Section 3 is the local black, brown, or low income people. You guarantee you're going to get the participation that you're looking for. Because, like I said, you can get your quota with minority or with a Caucasian woman, and we got in the picture, and we the ones moving in the house. So that's why I want to know what can we get that addressed. That's what I want to know about Section 3 development.
Not to speak for the city, Jackie, you certainly chime in, but I think when that RFP process is done, that language would have to be part and parcel of that to have inclusion of those who are there and certified to do the work. So conceivably what will be happening is that those identified parcels, the city will issue an RFP for all developers. And the winning developer is going to have to comply with the language that's in that contract that would have, minority local workers be part and parcel of that.
I know you're referring to Section 3 training, which is, Section 3, which refers specifically to using CDBG funds and federal funds. And that they won't always be used in these kinds of projects. But I think what Brian is saying, and we want to make sure we cover all that with CDBG, with whatever funds, whatever development comes in, we put the language in that says you must have that participation in a certain quota, a certain percentage. And so we will make sure that that happens. The Section 3 training, actually, we are, this is just an aside, but the city is going to be doing more of that training so that contractors that do come in and use federal dollars understand what they have to do to have that participation.
Very good.
Good evening, my name is Sheila Ford. I live at 2033 Dudley Road. I spoke at the first meeting, and I am pleased to know that the two of you took good notes, and I thought it was a very engaging and enlightening dialogue that we all had. The concerns that we raised, I think, were, as a citizen with some expertise around finance, I think that, and around municipal finance in particular, I think it was incumbent upon the administration and you as the representatives to take a good look at the concerns we raised. I have some more concerns. What I'd like to start with, though, is the issue of compliance. The young man mentioned the lack of compliance. My question is, how can we expect compliance around minority participation when it appears that we don't have a process in place now? I've lived here for 20 years. what you base your expectations on are the past experiences. So my question is, do we have a compliance program around minority participation? I'm seeing the head of city council shake her head no, and I'm seeing the attorney shake his head yes. So obviously there's confusion. I'm seeing nothing from the mayor. I don't know. Susan Brown Wilson is shaking her head no. I raised that point because it's critical. It's critical. This is a community comprised of many Black and brown people who want work. Susan Brown Wilson talked about it. The young man talked about it. This doesn't work if people don't get jobs. People think I'm angry. I'm just tired. I'm tired. I am tired of seeing, in the 20 years that I have lived here, curb cuts, work units that are all white. That doesn't do anything to enhance economic development within our community. It does nothing. If we don't have an active minority participation plan, we will fail, as we have failed in the past. So the question is, how do we put that in place? The last time we were here, Tyrone Powell, who's an attorney who works with Senator Teplitz, talked about the need for clawback provisions in the contracts that are made. We have to, if we go forward with this, as we establish those contracts, be certain that we have clawback provisions in them. When Ms. Wilson talked about individuals coming in as developers and taking and not giving back, I've seen it happen. Everybody's seen it happen. Years ago, when I was president of the YWCA board, we started an economic development initiative in Midtown. We were given a building for $1. We took that building and we gave it to HAC and we said, build. We want economic development that is focused on diversity and lifting up Midtown. We want it here. What I saw was an economic development initiative that resulted for many years in empty buildings and a developer who walked away with a lot of money. That's not what we had in mind. That's not why I volunteered. That's not why the YWCA gave that building to HAC. It has changed now. We wanted to see poor and minority, young people and older people get skills in order to get jobs. Sometimes we get too far ahead of the process. You know, the deal can be very sexy. We love deals. I've done deals, we love deals. If you get too far ahead though, all that happens is someone ends up walking away with the money from the deal and you're left with empty houses, somebody who's wealthy, in a community where half the people or more are not working. That's why we're in part, why we are in the shape we're in today. I have a few other concerns. The school district. The school district. Property taxes are the primary funding source for the school district. If that is the case, I want us to be able to answer the question, why have we made a decision to forego collecting property taxes for 10 years? How does that benefit or not benefit students? Students who come from one of the poorest communities in the region, who already come to school with severe disadvantages. Poor and minority students here. Once again, another story. I've lived long enough to have a few stories up my sleeve. About 30 years ago, as a young lawyer, I worked on the Abbott versus Burke case in New Jersey. It was a school funding case to change the way poor and minority students receive funds for education. We won in New Jersey, and it changed it. It changed the structure. That has not happened here in Pennsylvania. We have an excessive reliance upon property taxes. And what that means is that if in fact, with respect to our immediate circumstances, if in fact we have a 10-year, 100% tax abatement, all of that money is foregone that would otherwise go into the coffers of the school district. Now, the head of the housing unit agency, I can't think of his name, but he's here and I respect his comments. He indicated that there is in fact some value, but it's a deferred value in my view. It is a deferred value. Perhaps what we need to do is to think a little differently about this. Maybe what we need to do is to think a little bit more creatively. Perhaps we need to look at something as the Madam President, who stood up as a resident and talked about this evening, which is just think a bit more creatively. Perhaps what she suggested, perhaps it is we look only at new business development. New business owners who come into the city and give them a tax break. That's an incentive for economic development. There are many, many, many ways we can think about this. What I cannot do, and yes, I feel very passionately about this, is have a plan that, in my view, disadvantages the young people of this school district, in my view. If, in fact, the benefits of that plan are not clear, are uncertain, and will work to benefit a few developers. Finally, when we talk about development in this town, I've lived here 20 years, it is always about for-profit development. I'm American, therefore I'm a capitalist. That's a joke. I'm not afraid of development. I'm not afraid of capitalism. But you know what? There's another way to do this. As you both know, last time we talked about Sister Mary Scullion, who has a nonprofit development group in Philadelphia that has partnered with for-profit entities. I spent some time last night looking over what she's done. I grew up in Philadelphia, so I know what she's done. We need to think about that. We need to think about that. I hope we pull ourselves together and figure this out. That's what I have to say. I don't know why, in a city that is so cash-strapped, we are considering foregoing additional taxes. It's a very logical question that deserves an answer. I see Dave Black here. I need to know an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. A couple of things in response to that. Sister Mary is one of our partners. We've worked with her. I don't think there's any, certainly no preconceived notion on my part that it would be just for profit. So that's not written anywhere. As a matter of fact, I encourage, and we encourage from our business, joint partnerships, because they tend to work the best in terms of serving the community. I agree with you on compliance there. There should be a plan in place, compliance in terms of MBW monitoring. I think that should be there going forward. The taxes that are not being paid, these lots are not paying any taxes as to why they haven't been collected. I'm not sure. I don't know. Should they go after them? Yes. But this is a jump start for more taxes down the road. So right now, these 300 plus lots are not paying taxes into the city, county, or the school district. And that's one of the things to get these properties on productive roads. So that's one of the reasons why they're looking at this stuff. But just, and there are other great nonprofits outside of Philadelphia, as well as in Pittsburgh also. So hopefully we can attract some of them here or even develop some of our own as far as I'm concerned. Because I would love to see some nonprofits step forward and participate in something like this. I don't know of any preconceived developer notions that there's something behind the curtain for a developer to come forward to do anything at this point, but that RFP would have to be drafted in some sort of way. It's inclusionary, and that's kind of my expectation going forward.
No, I just want to follow up with Brian, that those properties aren't producing any taxes now, so you're not foregoing anything because nothing's being put in. So if we don't have some incentive to have some development on those parcels, and most of them are housing, so when you say businesses, you know, it would apply to businesses as well, but most of those parcels you see there are in the so we would talk about housing. And so there's nothing to forgo now. And so we could sit here and not do anything and have no taxes at all for the school district, which is what we have now. Nothing.
One final point, there is a need for us to also look at the impediments to development, which are not only economic incentives, but they're also crime and blight. And so we also must focus on those, and we must begin to think creatively about how we address these issues, and we must not use our kids as leverage in that dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Thank you. Alan Kennedy Schaefer. I live on Burbeck Street. I have two main comments. I wanted to first agree with Ms. Dow-Ford on her comments about creating a balance to ensure that we are protecting our students, our school district, the future of education in Harrisburg, at the same time as we look to encourage development in the city. The second point is to follow up with Councilwoman Susan Brown Wilson's comment about making sure that we don't have folks who are taking advantage and gaming the system. There should be both not just compliance, but there should be requirements in place before you even get to the RFP stage. To me, I think once that's putting a lot of faith that the administrators who carry out the program are going to do the right thing. I think that needs to be done at the ordinance stage when City Council passes the ordinance, when the school board votes on it, if they get a vote on it. That should be there at that stage for the public, for the community, to be able to go online and read the requirements before it even comes up for a vote. We shouldn't be we shouldn't have to trust that the administrators are always going to do the right thing. I think we've seen from the former city treasurer that sometimes they don't do the right thing. So we need to have the safeguards in place before it gets to that stage. On that point, I think some of those requirements should include requiring that we not only have representation from minority and women-owned businesses in contracting, but we also have to look at who's going to be able to afford to live there. Do we have true encouragement of low-income housing availability, for instance? Are we going to provide a place for all of the unemployed and homeless veterans who are out there? Our service members who have served our country, there's a serious problem. We need to make sure that that gets addressed as well, so that there is a full, that we not just look at the front end contracting side, but we look at who are we actually going to be supporting within our community, because we need to start building up our community from the grassroots level, so that the residents can then afford to live there, and we can afford to send our children to good schools. So I encourage you to consider doing that. I think for some of you might be interested in an event that Harrisburg Hope is doing on Monday, the mayoral summit at 6 p.m. at Harrisburg Area Community College Cooper Student Center. We have 8 different mayors from across the mid-state coming, and the State Auditor General Eugene Pasquale to talk about some of these issues that get into the issue of sustaining our communities. Thank you.
I represent a labor union. I'm an affiliate of Jimmy's. We've also, my union specifically, is probably one of the longest standing businesses in Harrisburg. We were chartered March 17, 1916. We moved to our current location over 50-some years ago. So to speak to people staying and being part of the community, we've been here almost 100 years and we're not going anywhere. I want to thank the mayor, the city council, the school board, Mr. Hudson. This is the first time in the 30 years that I've been involved that I have seen this much passion from the community about moving the city forward. And to Ms. Ford, she had a great point. You know, are we going to forego tax money? Well, I've heard a lot about housing tonight, which is a very important component for the community. But let's not forget there's another component of this too. That's the commercial development that we want to bring along with this, which will increase our taxable base in the city, which is what we truly, truly need. We cannot balance the needs of the education of our children in this community on the homeowners one. The reason I decided to speak was I had my bookkeeper pull what I pay in taxes a year for my property at Burger Street. It's about $10,000. I can tell you the laborers have a union hall in this city. The bricklayers, a very large number in this city. I talked to them. We all pay our taxes and we want to stay there. And we are committed to moving the city forward. Everything that the residents have addressed tonight, the minority participation, the jobs, the benefit to the community. I want everybody to know in this room, it is more than achievable. It can be done. I've had the opportunity to spend 30 years in heavy construction. I've worked under multiple LERTAs with contractors before I represented the members here. Everything that you're asking for can be done. It truly, truly can be done. And there has been a couple projects here in the city that I'm proud to say I was involved with that met almost all the requirements that everybody in here wanted. If you remember when we did the Metro Bank Stadium expansion, we met 90% of the minority requirements. And I'm proud to say that we met that with the African American community, with the Hispanic community, and with the women in business enterprise community. I will tell you I worked very closely on that project with the contractors. It was done successfully. The YWCA up on the hill, a couple of the contractors were involved in that project, committed to meeting the requirements. They did it. And they were very, very successful projects. And I can tell you that YWCA was ran by a young man from this city who came through our apprenticeship program. And he drove that whole project. And I'm proud to say he did that job. And it can be done. I just want to caution everyone tonight, be realistic in your expectations. Okay? The homes, the 300 some lots, yes, we do need to do something. As a resident with my business here, I can tell you there is a lot of empty development properties in this city. And Mr. Johnson told me he grew up in the area where my building was from. You go 2 blocks over, we do have a crime problem up there. And that needs to be addressed in these proposals also. We not only want to move the city forward, we want to make this city the crown jewel. I'm proud to say we've been here for over 100 years. And look, I'm not going to be here 100 more, but I know my union's going to be here 100 more. And I want to see everything done properly. I do want to make sure that the needs of the community are addressed. When Mr. Jones said we would like a seat at the table, he meant it. We have a vast wealth of knowledge of working under LERTAs. And to the needs of addressing the jobs, nothing gives somebody a sense of ownership in their home more than being the person that built that home. If we can get the residents working on those jobs, building those homes, that gives them a true sense of community. And I believe on your first presentation, you said the secret was after the 10 years, we needed to make sure they had family-sustaining jobs. 40,000, I believe, was the magic number to stay in your home and pay your taxes. That $40,000 job is going to come with a commercial development for our city residents. That's going to bring them a family-sustaining job with wages and benefits and health care. And that will help make the community thrive. But I truly want to thank everyone sitting in this room tonight. I have not seen this kind of passion from the residents all coming together for a lot of years. And anything we can do to help, we are truly, truly here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Well, I guess, would you like to say a few words?
I agree with all the sentiments that were expressed here tonight, especially the last remarks that we can do this. I think that it's important not to judge the success of this program simply by past practice, which is what Ms. Ford used as her benchmark, but rather by the programs we put in place to ensure the compliance and the job creation and the good wages, all of which we want. And the purpose of tonight's meeting was to have that conversation and to give input into the drafting of what will become our presentation on the LERTA. I think we've done that. I think it's also important to note that it's not foregoing of tax revenue that somehow is otherwise going to occur. Developer after developer after developer has discussed the importance of having the LERTA in order to spur that development. So the city isn't foregoing any taxes that we are currently receiving. It is creating new opportunities, deferring the taxes on those, but at the same time receiving earned income taxes, local services taxes, jobs and sales tax, all sorts of other things that are obviously necessary for the economic health and vitality of the city. We made an argument tonight for it to be aggressive enough so that it would make the difference and give the impact and get the cranes up in the city of Harrisburg. If you haven't all those, we have no cranes in the city of Harrisburg. We have no meaningful development right now because it's too expensive to do in the city vis-a-vis other areas. We also made a case for having it be citywide, so that just as a matter of fairness, the city benefits whenever we have investment and development. So the key is how are we going to ensure the effective participation, ensure the local jobs, ensure compliance with what we want to see to bring the benefit really truly to the community here in Harrisburg. And that's what it's all about. And that's what we are going to work to ensure, and that's what we will continue the conversation moving forward. This administration is committed to that. It is committed to having something which is really meaningful and lasting. And I think it's been a very good sign that so many people have come out and participated in the event tonight. I want to thank Brian Hudson, who, as a volunteer, has really been invaluable in working through meeting after meeting with all the stakeholders. I want to thank Jackie Parker, who from the city has been sort of leading the charge. We're not done. This is just one step in the process. Both the school district, the county, the city will all have hearings on this. There'll be more opportunity to comment. And I think the process is unfolding exactly as it should unfold, with an active, engaged citizenry. So thank you all for coming and participating tonight.
Thank you. Most certainly want to thank everyone for coming tonight. As the mayor said, this is just the beginning. We have more to do, more work to do for sure, but it is the tool to be used. So thank you, and we heard what you said tonight, and we certainly are going to incorporate that into our initiative to get this process moving. Thank you again. Thank you for coming.